podcast where we know that every minute counts. And today I want to talk to you mom to mom about the topic of toys. I know that this is a big topic for so many moms. It seems like the toys take over your house. They're everywhere, every little nook and cranny, every corner. You're stepping on them, you're moving them, you're organizing them, you're cleaning them, and the next day they're right back out where they started. So today I just want to give you some tips on how to handle the toys. I have been helping moms get organized for about 15 years now, and I would say that the one thing that I think about when I go into a person's house and they're very stressed out about toys may surprise you. My kids are now 11 and 14, and when I go into somebody's house and they're complaining about toys, you know what? I actually feel kind of sad because the toys in my house are very sparse these days. I still remember the day that my daughter packed up all her Barbies and stuffed animals, and even though there were so many days throughout her life that I was picking these things up off the floor, that day she packed them up, I was actually kind of sad because it's the end of an era. So the first thing I want to tell you, moms that have little kids, is that you know what? This time in your life is so short, so don't let toys completely stress you out. I mean, the fact that you have toys laying around is a blessing that you have children in the home. And you just sometimes need to stop and remember that when you're having one of those days where it just seems like you do all the work by yourself, nobody helps you, and you're stressed out because of the things that they leave behind, that, you know, little warpath that follows them wherever they go. So just remember that. Your kids will grow up faster than you want, and the toys will be gone, and it will just be a vivid memory. So it's not so bad. But there are ways to kind of keep it under control while it's happening. And this time of year, you know, we're going into the holidays, and we sometimes get really stressed out as moms thinking about all the new toys that are going to be coming into the house. So I really, really want to encourage you to take some time this week to go through the toys that are already in the house and to pare down as much as you can before you have to find homes for all the new toys. It's even that much more overwhelming when you wait until the new toys arrive and then try to do this. The biggest thing I want you to do is to go through and be honest with yourself about what your kids are playing with. So a lot of times I'll see moms, you know, hang on to toys that their kids haven't played with for years because it reminds them of a special time in their life or a nostalgic period when the kids were littler, and it makes them want to hang on to those toys forever. And the thing about it is it's always more important to be stress-free and be able to maintain your home more than it is to keep hanging on to every little thing that comes in your home. Most of these things, the kids outgrow them. There was a season for it, and when that season is over, it's okay to just let it go, especially when you can let it go to another child that would love it and play with it currently. So go through your house this week, look for toys that your kids are no longer playing with, and try to eliminate those first. The thing is, sometimes I'll even hear, you know, moms ask their kids if they can get rid of something, and either one of two things happens. Either the child says, sure, no problem, and then mom decides, but are you sure because grandma bought it for you? Or, you know, I remember we got that at Disney World, so are you sure you want to get rid of it? And then the child feels like they said the wrong answer, and they end up hanging on to it longer. Doesn't mean they're going to play with it. They're just going to hang on to it. The second thing that happens with a lot of kids, I always joke around that little kids are born as little hoarders, but they do like their trinkets and treasures. They do like their toys. They do like their stuffed animals, and that's part of being a child, which is fantastic. But we do want to teach them the fact that they don't want to have to keep everything for the rest of their life. So if they're helping you sort through the toys this week, just go ahead and ask them, you know, tell mommy what your favorite toy is in this pile. Tell me look on that shelf and tell mommy what your favorite toy is. What are your favorite 5 toys? And then they can make that pile. And then after that, maybe you can even say to them, and I used to do this all the time with our kids and it worked really great, what toys could you give to another little boy or little girl that might not have as many toys as you? And I think it's really a great learning lesson to be able to get our kids to give easily and to part easily by asking them a question in that way, because sometimes, our kids are not realizing how lucky they are, how blessed they are, and how many toys they have, and that there's actually kids all over the world with much less toys than they have. And I think it's really important. So every time when our kids were little, every December, we would go through and ask them if they could come up with 5 things that they were willing to give to another little boy or little girl. And now that they're older, this is proven to be a really important lesson. They're very giving. They don't have to hang on to everything. When they're done with something or they don't love something anymore, they don't feel upset when we get rid of it. It's just an easy flow because it's something that we have taken the time to teach them. And when it comes to organizing, a lot of times the parents don't teach the kids how to be organized. Sometimes they're not sure how to do it themselves. But if you can take that time and teach your kids a skill, I promise you they're going to benefit from it for the rest of their lives, especially when they become older adults and start running and managing their own household. So go through, find out what you can part with, get your kids involved if they're at the age where you feel like they're ready for this, and start really thinking about cutting down. And speaking of cutting down, I want to throw out this idea. I really, truly, from most of the houses I've been in throughout the years, I really, truly have come to the conclusion that kids have way, way too many toys. And when it comes to picking up and maintaining and storing these toys, putting them back where they belong, there's so many toys that it's truly overwhelming for a child. If you think a cluttered area in your house is overwhelming, think of how a little kid would feel with a smaller concept of what's going on, and how when they have every single toy out in the playroom, and mom comes in and says, "Hey, time to pick up the toys, John." Johnny's looking at 100 toys or 50 toys or 20 toys. It doesn't matter. It still seems like too many toys for him to pick up at that moment. So 2 things I've been taught through this is, number 1, cut down on the amount of toys, because when we expect our kids to keep up with these areas where the toys are stored, less is more. It truly is. And less is easier to keep up, less is easier to put away. They will actually play with what they have more if they have less out. So I want to encourage you to see if you can cut your toys in half this week. This means that you will literally decide on 50% of the toys that can be packed away for anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And I know this seems maybe a little crazy to some of you, but if you've just been so fed up with toys, your kids aren't picking up what they get out, and you're stressed out and overwhelmed by toys, this is something you can do. Now, the reason why it works is because, like I said, less is more. Number 2 is you will be able to truly see how many toys your kids need. You'll be able to notice that they have an abundance, a true abundance, and that they're not going to miss any of those things that you put away, unless, for some reason they're in the middle of a Lego project and you pack that one up. But the ones that you're really noticing they're not playing with, if you cannot part with it completely, meaning you're going to donate it or sell it and remove it from the house, then consider putting it into what I like to call a holding tank. And a holding tank is simply a bin that you put things in, and you label it with the date that you put the items in. So say, for example, it's December 1st. You would label the bin 3 to 6 months, however you're comfortable with. So say it's 3 months, then you would label the bin March 1st. And then that would be your cue that you could not take the things out of the bin until March 1st. The reason this is, the other reason that I love this idea is because I'm telling you, if you have little kids and you pull out these toys, okay, so now currently they have less toys, and in 3 to 6 months you pull out that bin of toys, it's like Christmas morning all over again. And it is just more exciting for them. It's like, why go buy new toys? Just bringing out toys they haven't seen in a while sometimes just creates just as much excitement. I remember thinking about this idea when I was younger, and I had a friend whose mom used to wrap up some of the toys that they weren't playing with anymore and give them to her daughters for Christmas. And I just thought that was hilarious, for starters, that this mom was always full of fun, creative ideas. But instead of spending so much money on new toys, she would, of course, give them some presents at Christmas. But these toys that they forgot about would be wrapped up and re-gifted to them. And my friend and her sister had no clue it was happening. Literally no clue. So I'm going to encourage you to try this. And if after 3 to 6 months you really don't miss having so many toys to take care of, then maybe that'll be your sign to part with them for good. So consider doing that, and let me know. Make sure you let me know how that goes. You might absolutely hate it and say, Jen, that was a horrible idea. My kids were screaming and crying. Or you might say, that was the best idea I ever heard. But as far as let me give you a hint. I would not tell your kids you're doing this. Just do it as an experiment on your own, especially if they're little, and just watch what happens. See if they're walking around the house going, oh, I missed this toy, I missed that toy. I guarantee it won't happen. The other thing is, I notice a lot of times in homes, people keep toys in too many places. So for example, there's baskets of toys in the living room. There might be a basket of toys in the kitchen. There's toys in their bedroom. There's toys in the basement. There's toys in a playroom. There's toys in the garage. There's just toys everywhere. And that may be another reason why you feel like toys are taking over your life. Now, it's simple, especially if you cut down like I asked you to, then you can go through your house and you can basically decide on, I would say, 2 to 3 homes max of toys. I know sometimes people don't like toys in bedrooms, and they do keep everything in a playroom, but most of the time I see toys in more than 2 or 3 locations, and I really think that adds to the madness. So consider creating homes in 2 or 3 places. Really, you probably don't even need 3, but if you're really desperate, go ahead and get 3 places for toys and keep it simple. Things like toy boxes are not good storage for toys. I know that they're sold as toy boxes, but really, unless they're large toys like trucks, Tonka trucks, big baby dolls, big stuffed animals, then it kind of works okay. But anything small, we all know what happens as soon as it goes in the toy box. All the little things fall to the bottom, never to be seen again, and you know that your kids aren't reaching to the bottom of that toy box to pull out those little trinkets. The only time those trinkets will ever be seen again is when mom decides to clean out the toy box. So save yourself that chore and just either don't use toy boxes at all or use them only for large things. The smaller the containers for toys, the better, so that they can be broken down into specific categories. So if you are going to use, say, a basket, make sure it's not a basket that contains more than a couple of categories. You really want to designate different containers for different categories, meaning that then your kids will know what belongs where. So you can simply say, okay, you can only have 1 basket of toys at a time, and when we're done playing with that, we're going to clean them up and we're going to put the toys back in their home, and before we get out the next basket of toys. Now, even a toddler can be taught that, all of the Matchbox cars, say, go into the yellow basket, or all of the baby dolls go into the pink bin. So they're not going to get it right the first time, and they're not going to get it right the 10th time or even the 20th time. But over time, I guarantee they will get it. And what happens a lot of times is moms, we just are tired and we're overwhelmed, so we give up and we say, okay, make sure that you put the dolls in the pink bin, but then they don't feel like it and they walk away, and mom just wants to save time, so she hurries up and grabs all of the baby dolls and puts them in the bin. And the next time, the same exact thing is going to happen because the child has not been taught to finish the job that she started. So even if it means 10 times you're reminding her to put the dolls in the bin and you're helping her do that, over time, she will understand that that's where the dolls go. And the biggest thing about this is to make sure you deliver lots and lots and lots of praise when she does it. Even if she starts out putting one in, it's a huge deal. We clap. Mommy's so excited, so proud, so happy. I love when you're my helper. I love when you help mommy pick up, and they'll feel really good about themselves. And it's just that simple thing. Now, over time, as our kids get older, they'll be more responsible for putting more things away. But don't fall into the trap that your child's too small, to catch on to these things. A 2-year-old is very, smart enough to figure out where things go if you make it easy. Obviously, we're not telling a 2-year-old to put the books back on a shelf that's above the dresser, but a 2-year-old can even put their book back into a basket on the carpet next to the sofa. So just make it simple. And again, don't have it be that, don't let there be so many toys that it's just overwhelming for the kids to clean up. You want to make it super, super simple. The other thing to help children start to realize where things belong is to label things. And when they're really small, I like to use photos of the item. And if they're starting to read, I like to use a photo and then the word underneath, just because it reiterates what the word means, and you can constantly say it. So say, it's the word cars or trucks. You can have a picture of a truck on the top and then the word trucks underneath, and that will also help kids realize where things belong when it's time to pick up. And, really it helps everybody in the household know where things go. Labeling is something that is useful to help moms, because sometimes as moms, we know where everything belongs, but not necessarily everybody else knows that. So make sure that you are labeling, label. And, I just want to make sure that most people realize that, as moms, this is something that is just part of being a mom. The toys are, like I mentioned before, it's a blessing to have these things laying around our house. It's not something that should cause you so much stress that, you're just in a bad mood or you're overwhelmed in your own home. It's not worth it. Let's just take a second and remember that they're just toys. I mean, this is not life or death, but I do know that a lot of times parents feel like if they see another toy, they're going to lose their mind. So other couple, I just want to, wrap up with some tips on some storage ideas that really work well for kids. Number one is, how a lot of times board games, the boxes get ripped or they don't last, they don't hold up well. I have found that those plastic scrapbook containers at Michael's are perfect for game pieces, even for Legos, anything that has a box that gets ruined. You can put the pieces in one of those containers, and they're great because they're see-through and they don't take up a lot of room. You can stack several on top of each other on a shelf, and they also snap close. The other thing that's great for card games when the boxes get ruined is just a simple travel soap container that you can pick up at the dollar store. I mean, it's super easy to grab one of those, and it stores any card games really perfectly. The other thing is to consider the amount of stuffed animals in your home. For starters, we want to make sure that we're not over saving, because stuffed animals don't hold up over the years unless they're stored, in a sealed tight container. So when it's time to part with some, I know that's hard for a lot of kids, but make sure that they're not keeping the ones that they don't really, really love, because stuffed animals do take up a lot of space. But the ones that they love, I think it's easy to put them on a chain hanging from the ceiling. There's little cute hammocks. There is, sometimes you can decorate a few on the bed, but an abundance on the bed seems to be too much work for most kids. And you also can, like I mentioned before, store them in a toy box. What else do I have? All those little small toys that just kind of get lost in the shuffle, but for some reason, little kids just love it. They get them, at school, or they pick a little, a rock up at the park that they love. Anything that's really, it's a temporary thing that they're really into right now, but you're not going to keep forever, and they're very small. The over-the-door shoe organizers are great for those things, because if you get the clear shoe organizer, they can see in the little pockets and they can see exactly what they have. So it's not something that's going to get lost at the bottom of a basket or a bin or in a drawer. So consider that too. For puzzles, a lot of times puzzles, once the child puts the puzzles together, it's great. But then when they're taken back apart, they get mixed up with other puzzles. So one thing I like to tell kids to do is when the puzzle is complete, you flip it over, you color the back of the puzzle pieces with one color. So say, for example, red, or you can use you can use whatever. You could use paint, you could use crayons, you can use markers. So that whole puzzle, every piece on the back is red. And then we know that all the red pieces go together in the box. And then a different puzzle can be another color. What else do I have? So I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. I'll probably end up putting some other ideas at the bottom of the post, but I just want to reiterate to kind of go through the stuff right now before the holidays hit, or every year before their birthday. Designate some time every year to go through the toys, and then don't forget to consider the rotation. And definitely, please teach your child to give what they're no longer using and no longer loving to somebody else, because if we can just teach our kids that's such an important lesson. A lot of adults are really, what I always say, are having a death grip on things that we're not going to have in the next life, things that are staying here on earth. And for us to hoard them and for us to keep a really tight grip on them and not share them with others is a really sad thing. Don't let your kids grow up to be like that. Teach them to give with open hands and to just be generous. I know it might not come easy. I know you may be listening and saying, if I can't part with the toys, how are they? Or I'd love to get rid of every single toy in this house, but my child seems to keep bringing in more and more and more. And that's the other thing. Let me just touch on that really fast. With the holidays approaching, I've heard this so many times where somebody will have a relative or two or three that even though they say we have enough toys, the aunt, uncle, grandparent, whoever it is, still buys in abundance. And as a parent, I really think it's your job to be very clear and to set boundaries of what comes in the house. And if you feel like maybe your children just don't appreciate what they have, they're not willing to take good care of it, you just can't handle anymore in the house, then by all means speak up and please ask these people that are giving you gifts this year to consider giving you an experience or giving your child an experience instead of more stuff. Because really, he who has the most toys does not win in this world. That's just a myth that's been fed to us by lots of marketing agencies and toy companies and businesses around the globe. So don't buy into it. And let me tell you what, you're not a bad mom if you cut down on the toys. You know what? Maybe having less toys to pick up every night will mean you can have more time to read bedtime stories, or more time to sit down and do a craft, or more time to actually play one of the 20, 30 board games that are on the shelf. Because a lot of times we waste our minutes picking up the stuff. We waste our minutes throughout the day making sure that everything is back in its place and cleaning and tidying. And a lot of times, when you lay your head on the pillow, you feel bad, like you could have spent more quality time with your child. And I don't know anybody whose children are raised and out of the house that has ever said to me, hey, Jennifer, I really wish I would have picked up the toys more often. I really wish I would have, cleaned more or done some more dishes. They always, if they ever have a regret, it's always about the time they spent with their children and the people they love. And that's really the most important thing. That's really all we're going to care about at the end of our life. So I want to encourage you to think about that this week. And I wish you the best of luck. Please feel free anytime for any podcast with the 29-Minute Mom. I love to have email and feedback from those of you that are listening. And if there's something else you want to hear on the show, please feel free to email me that request as well. Don't be afraid to post questions or make comments underneath the podcast, because I really think that all of us moms can learn from each other. And if you're wondering a question, there are plenty of other moms out there with the same question on their mind. They just haven't had a chance to ask. So by all means, ask away. And I wish you so much luck in dealing with your toys this week. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the 29-Minute Mom, where we know every minute counts.